Joining us now is Joe Cirincione. He's president of the Plowshares Fund. Mr. Cirincione, thank you so much for being here. It's nice to see you.
My pleasure, Rachel. Thank you very much for having me.
You are an acute observer of processes, diplomatic and otherwise, around the world regarding nuclear proliferation and nuclear weapons. What did the Obama administration do that the Bush administration and their predecessors weren't able to do in order to get this deal?
Well, as you pointed out, when the president came into office, he had a mess on his hands. People were comparing the legacy that he inherited to the legacy that Abraham Lincoln had to deal with, or Franklin Delano Roosevelt had to deal with. And it didn't make it any easier to fix all those problems when you had your political opponents fighting you every day, every step of the way, and you had some of your allies and friends looking aside and not helping you. But he was determined, I remember in his inaugural speech, his very first day in office, to extend the hand of friendship to Iran, to break with the Bush administration approach that thought that you could change the regime, overthrow it, coerce it into surrender. That policy led Iran from going from 0 centrifuges at the beginning of the Bush administration to 8,000 by the time they left. Now, at first it didn't work, but he stayed with it, and he coupled it with a pressure tactic of sanctions, the most crushing sanctions regime that has ever been put on any state in peacetime. But the purpose wasn't to crush Iran, it was to get them to the table, and he set the table. And what you saw this weekend was the fruition of that strategy of pressure plus incentives. Yes, we're going to hammer you if you keep going on with their program, but if you want to give it up, let's make a deal. We can reincorporate you. We can manage our differences. Diplomacy works.
Joe, what do you make of both the substantive nature of the complaint, but also the political import of Israel's stated loud, vociferous objections to this? Obviously, Israel is the most important U.S. ally in the world, probably, in terms of matters of that part of the world, certainly, and their concerns are taken very, very seriously across the political spectrum here. Yeah. What do you make of those voiced objections?
Well, very interestingly, I debated an Israeli defense official, retired general, this weekend in Halifax at a security conference. In fact, Jackson Deal, the man who wrote that Washington Post editorial, was there as a moderator. And I found that publicly he had a very strident position, much like you hear Prime Minister Netanyahu. But privately, he was much more pragmatic. And I think you're seeing Netanyahu still play this role, still posture. I'm not sure it's real, but he's the only leader in the world who is raising these strident objections to the Iran deal. Even Saudi Arabia, which has deep differences with Iran, issued a positive statement today. And among national security analysts, the serious people in this town, they're coming out one after the other in favor of this deal because it's just, after a while, you just have to look at facts. This deal stops Iran's program in its tracks. It starts to roll it back. It buys time, and it lays the groundwork for a comprehensive agreement that could eliminate it altogether. It's a remarkable success story. Many of the politicians you see posturing today thought this was impossible to get. They're still trying to catch up with that, but you got to break that paradigm. You got to realize that this president, this team, these Americans are making the world safer, ending the chemical threat in Syria, now trying to end the nuclear threat from Iran, and as you say, get a stable peace in Afghanistan. It's a remarkable string of national security successes.
Joe Cirincione, president of the Plowshares Fund. Joe, thanks very much for being here tonight. It's nice to see you.